what advice do you have for a young leader that's just starting out in their career in construction?
You can rent a piece of equipment, and if you can make a profit, you can eventually buy a piece of equipment or several pieces of equipment. But most of all, you're going to need a good relationship with a bank, with two banks actually, because banks are fickle. You don't ever know if those banks will stay with you or not. You need an insurance agent that will sell you what you need and no more. You need an accountant that will keep you out of tax trouble. You need a lawyer that will give you good legal advice. And I said, if you establish good relationships with those people, all you've got to do is just hang on.
The sound of that tractor means it's time for us to go to work. You're listening to the Give Us a Dirt podcast powered by Hoopah Grading Company. My name is Brandon. This is
BamBam.
And we are your hosts. We have got, BamBam, we've had some incredible guests in the studio.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
But I would say we've only had a handful of what I would consider legends.
Right. Yes.
In the studio.
We're fixing that today, ain't we?
We have got one of the legends of the game in the studio today. So I've been really excited about this. And matter of fact, I'm a little bit stressed out because there's so much to dig out of this that I don't know how you get it in one episode. So this might become, we might just have to have a series on this one. But
we'll just not make a long story any longer.
That sounds good to me.
I don't know. I think our people would want to hear the long version. But today, in this episode, we are honored to be hosting Brad Barringer, the visionary leader of Barringer & Sons Incorporated, a cornerstone in municipal utility construction since 1937. Now, while Brad is enjoying his retirement and may not be as involved in the day-to-day of running a successful construction company, the Barringer legacy lives on through his two sons, John, Matt, and grandson, Gunner, which are third and fourth generations of Barringer leaders.
We've got a 2-year-old coming after him.
Fifth generation on the way.
Yes, sir.
Brad's impressive career has spanned over 60 years. He's seen the industry evolve from bidding projects with a notepad and pencil to witnessing today's construction landscape where takeoffs are being done by AI. It's a big leap.
That's it.
His impact in construction will be remembered for years to come, shaping legislation and creating the standards that we all operate by today. He received the AGC Past President's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018, which can only be overshadowed by being a guest on the Give Us a Dirt podcast.
Yes, yeah.
Joining us today, we dig into Brad's remarkable career and his incredible contributions to the industry. Brad, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome.
For having me.
Hey, and I found out, too, this is not your first rodeo. You've done podcast or two.
A couple of podcasts before, yeah. I always enjoyed it, yeah.
Okay.
Other people trying to get you to tell your story, were they able to do it inside of one episode?
They did it in one episode, but we had to cut it a little short. The 60-some years is hard to crowd into
It is.
30 minutes.
I don't know how we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. I found out something before we started, talking to Brad, B.R.S. Do you know what the R is?
I do not.
Brad, tell us what the R.
It's Brad, Ruby, and Sons.
Okay.
Ruby's my wife.
Oh, okay.
And she continuously reminds us that without the R, we're just B.S.
And she is so right. I love that. Ruby.
Wiles is good at that, ain't they?
They are.
I feel like Ruby runs this thing.
Ruby has never been actually hands-on involved.
Really?
Been corporate secretary for a lot of years. Gave that up a year or two ago, but she's never been hands-on.
She's been controlling.
She's been raising kids.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. So we do something a little bit different here on the Give Us the Dirt podcast. Instead of you introducing yourself to our listeners, we ask you, how would Miss Ruby introduce you to somebody that's never met you?
Oh, golly, I'm not sure we want to put that in. I would just, I'd say I'd just be her husband that's taken care of her for quite a few years.
Yes, sir.
And since you can cut out whatever you want to, we grew up together. whenever I was about 8 years old or so, and my mom had a party, a bridge club or something she wanted to go to, she would get some of Ruby's older sisters to come babysit my brothers and I. And Ruby would come along to play with me. Ruby's been playing with me ever since.
I love it. Y'all are still playing together. How old were y'all then?
She was probably 5 or 6.
That's incredible. And y'all been married 60 years?
Going on 61.
61 years. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's incredible.
Yes, sir.
Well, so I don't even know where to start on this thing. If you haven't been to the B.R.S. website, you need to go check it out because you actually penned a story. You tried to capture as much of the history as you can. And put it on. That story is on the website. But
yeah, that was 10 years ago for the National Utility Contractors Association. They asked us to write a page, and I wrote 4 pages. I couldn't condense it much more than that.
And 4 pages probably wasn't enough. So take us back to, so this thing started 1937, according to what?
That's whenever my 2 uncles came home from working the WPA projects. And they came home and they'd raised on a farm and they had learned to run some equipment. They really didn't want to go back to farming. So they bought a bulldozer and started clearing land and building ponds and leveling off spots for barns, that kind of stuff, just custom grading.
And one of the things I saw in the story, this will blow your mind, BamBam. It looked like they were charging $3 an hour.
That's what my dad used to tell me. He made $3 an hour with that bulldozer, and that included his time, his fuel, the equipment, and the taxes.
That was all in.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
$3 an hour, all in, equipment, labor, fuel, all of it.
And wonder what it is now.
That's
More than 3.
more than 3.
Yes, sir.
So those would be that's your uncles.
My 2 uncles.
And that was Jay and
Alton. Alton died about 1939 or 40, and my dad joined my Uncle Jay. So they were operated as Barringer brothers.
And your dad was Luther.
My dad was Luther.
Okay. And so they joined. Tell us about, they had a pretty good stint there running the company together.
Yeah, they did. They got real good at the farm to market roads during the Governor Carr Scott administration in North Carolina. And the farm to market roads were a big push for state tax dollars. So they got pretty good at that. But then whenever Eisenhower introduced the interstate highway programs, and the money for farm to market roads just dried up, and they really didn't want to get big enough to do interstate highway work. So they sold off most of the equipment, went back to custom grading.
Do you remember any of that time? Do you remember growing up and seeing them working and being out there?
Oh, yeah. I remember riding to work with him in the pickup. I remember, like I told BamBam, I remember pictures of me sleeping on the bulldozer seat beside my dad. So that'd been that far back. But then I do remember it was the first piece of equipment that I was in charge of and operated was a D4 Cat in 1958. We cleared Toys Knot Swamp down at Wilson, North Carolina, and I operated a winch tractor, D4 Cat with a winch on the back. And we'd ride down on Sunday night to stay all week. Usually we carried about 10 cases of ditching dynamite, and I'd make a bed on the dynamite to sleep on the way to Wilson.
Taking a nap on top of the dynamite.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, my gosh. What does a D4 look like in 1958?
A lot like your picture on the wall, except it didn't have a cab, of course.
No cab.
It didn't have the high tracks.
Yep.
Just a simple little tractor.
Yep. Just no rollover protection, just
none whatsoever.
On top of the track.
I welded up some galvanized pipe and made me a heat or a sun shield to go over the top so I could be in the shade a little bit.
Oh, you got
But it was certainly not a ROPS by any means.
no, sir.
So you spent a lot of your childhood out there with your dad and your uncle on the
I
job.
grew up working on equipment. Whenever I was in school at NC State, I'd come home on the weekend, and there was usually something broke down that I needed to fix.
So
Yeah.
was it going to NC State? I saw that part of your story too. Was that, did you want to go to NC State, or was that something your dad encouraged you to do? Because I got to imagine in the back of your mind, you kind of knew how this thing was going to play out.
Oh, I didn't have a clue.
You didn't know that you were going to go into the family business?
No,
Really?
I didn't know. Well, everybody said I needed to go to NC State. My teachers, my principal in high school, go to NC State, study mechanical engineering because I was mechanical minded. And I didn't know at that time that that was heating and air conditioning. It wasn't anything I wanted to do.
Yes.
So I went for a couple of years and dropped out. Actually, I got sent home, just to be truthful about it, with a 0.58 QP average.
And they said that you might need to go find something else to do.
So I found out that Gaston Technical Institute was starting a quarter on the following Monday. So I headed to Gastonia, got enrolled, went back to Raleigh and picked up my wife. We were married at that time. Moved back to Richfield, and I was in school at Gaston Tech in civil engineering on Monday morning and made the dean's list there.
And that's something.
That's because that's what you wanted to do.
It found my spot.
Yes, sir. You was pushing in the right direction there, wasn't you? That's good.
So coming out of school, you finish up school, you and Miss Ruby are together now. Y'all married at this point?
Yeah, we were married.
Married at this point. When did you decide, hey, I'm gonna go get in with Dad and I'm going to run the business?
While I was still in school, my dad and uncle and Ray Lauder had organized a Rand Construction Company. They were chasing the dollars that the federal government was putting into the Clean Water Act. And they had organized a company within the Ray Lauder organization to do utility work. And after a couple of years, Ray died. And they made me vice president. I was still in school. They made me vice president, bought out Ray's portion of Rand Construction. And so I was vice president of the business before I ever graduated.
How old were you? 20?
I was 22. Yeah, I was 22 by then.
And so was that the beginning of B.R.S.? Or did that come?
No, the B.R.S. came about due to the, well, this is going to get touchy, the affirmative action program that the federal government was pushing in the early 80s, and we were forced to use some subcontractors that failed to complete their work. And that left us with a little over $1 million worth of claims against us, back when $1 million was a lot of money.
Right.
And I lost my ability to bond. I lost my insurance. I lost my banking. Just lost all of that while we were fighting those claims. So I didn't want to be a subcontractor. Some of the other contractors that I knew gave me some work, and I was appreciative of that. That was wonderful, and they treated me fine. But I didn't want to be a subcontractor all my life. So I organized B.R.S. Incorporated just simply as a fix until we could get the Rand legal issues straightened out, and I fully intended to go back to Rand Construction. But after about 2 years fighting the courts and finally winning the case against our minority subs that had failed, there was just no need to go back. We had established a decent reputation as B.R.S. Inc. and decided to roll right on along. And I switched crews as we would pick up jobs for B.R.S. I would ask the crews that had been working with Rand if they wanted to come with me in the new company, because I was running both companies at that point. And I didn't have anybody that refused to transfer to B.R.S. And we transferred crew by crew from Rand Construction to B.R.S. until Rand completely out of work, and we were just rolled on. B.R.S. Inc.
Wow. I imagine that was pretty tough time. It sounds like with the RIN issue going on, and you trying to start B.R.S. and having to fight.
It was one of the toughest times I've lived through. Yeah.
Yes.
It was very uncertain.
How many did you have at that point whenever you had brought all those folks over?
And about 45, maybe 50.
Oh, okay.
They
was good size.
Yeah, pretty good size. We weren't a small operation. I mean, small compared to lots of places, but we were sizable family business at that point.
That's cool. And managing 50 folks like that is a challenge whenever you're trying to get everything pulled up off the ground, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I had one friend that was a contractor said, Brad, I don't understand how you manage that much at one time. Said, we just like one job at a time. I said, well, if I've got 4 or 5 going, I can switch people to wherever I need them. I don't ever run out of work for them. If I just had one job at a time and I finished it, I don't know what I would do with my folks. So it's easier to manage 50 than it would have been to manage 5.
Yes, sir. Yep.
That makes a lot of sense. Makes sense. One of the cool things when I was reading your story, you think about what it was like trying to do this kind of work and bid this kind of work when you were doing it. You talked about bidding jobs with a piece of paper and a pencil, and I think of all the tools that we have today to be able to do this. And so I'm going to ask you I want you to take us back in time. I want you to tell us about construction and what it was like back then. When you're a kid and you start complaining to your dad about it's cold outside or I got to walk this far. What do they say? When I was your age.
When I was your age, I did this.
You had to. So, Brad, I want you to finish this sentence. When I was your age, and you're talking to a young construction professional, somebody that just came out of school or come out of high school, come out of college, they're getting ready to start their career in construction, and you're looking at them and you say, when I was your age.
Okay, when I was your age, we didn't have hydraulic excavators. We were still operating cable machines. We didn't have lasers to control line and grade. We were still using stakes and hubs and batter boards. We didn't have the EPA. We didn't have to grass anything and clean it up. We didn't have silt fence to worry about. It was just a whole different world. We didn't have OSHA. I remember this whenever the Lambert bill was passed, or Lambeth, whatever it was, bill was passed, it brought OSHA into being. And my Saturday morning duty was taking whatever they had mailed out and put it in the book to decide what our new regulations were. So I was at it a long time before we even had a OSHA to contend with.
Oh,
wow. Was safety on your mind back then? Did y'all think about safety?
Yes. In fact, in 1968, we had a trench cave-in that killed an employee at Rand Construction. And I called for somebody to clean a pickup off so that we didn't have 911. We didn't have emergency crews to come out. So I called for somebody to clean off a pickup. They got it cleaned off. We dug him out of the ditch, loaded him up back of the truck. I had asked who knows the way to the hospital. Found out that my hoe operator knew where the hospital was. I said, you're driving? I crawled on the back of the truck with the employee, and he took a gasp or two, and I assume he died in my lap on the way to the hospital. You think about safety after that. That makes it primary if you lose somebody. Name was Shorty Barnett, and I've still got a couple of tools I bought from Shorty before the accident, whenever he was working.
Yeah. That's yeah, I've heard a few people that have been a part of something like that, and that's a game changer.
It is.
But Brad, how do you come back from that? How do you push through that and get your team back ready for the next play after you get through there?
I don't know, Bam Bam. That's a tough question to answer. You just you deal with whatever comes your way and just have to move on. I don't know that there's a set way to deal with something like that and how to move on. I mean, you would treat it different than I did, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. Well, that's understandable.
But you know, those experiences and some of the things that you encountered during your career, we've learned from, we've gotten better, and you've actually been a part of creating some of the standards and creating some of the new legislation and regulation that help out in our industry. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, I guess the two pieces of legislation in North Carolina that I'm most proud of is the North Carolina One Call Act. See, I was in business before we had anything like a one call to get utilities located, and I worked on the first version of that, and it got passed in 1981, and then I worked on the update a few years later. But I am well pleased with being a part of the North Carolina One Call, or the 811 law. And then the other thing that I'm most proud of is a total revamp of the blasting standards. Subpart U and the OSHA standards, which concerns the blasting.
Yeah.
And the federal standard was so out of date, it was almost unbelievable. They didn't address shock tube. They said that you couldn't dig out a misfire, and then they explained how to dig it out anyway in the federal standard. And we totally rewrote the North Carolina standard and got a North Carolina OSHA regulation that we could live with. And most of the citations for blasting stopped whenever we got that passed, because the standards were so out of date and so outmoded.
So it lined it out for them. These are steps you're going to go through. And that pretty much eliminated the guesswork and therefore eliminated the citations that they wrote for.
Yeah, that in part, and the fact that I don't think they understood enough to know what they was right.
Yeah, a little bit of education in there as well. Huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the federal standard still is totally out of date. The federal standard doesn't address shock tube yet, and still got the old sign standards that North Carolina has replaced. But I'm proud of working on that with the North Carolina contractors.
So, two amazing accomplishments there. I mean, both of those things have changed our industry, and so you should be so proud of that. But I'm sitting here thinking, you mentioned as you were starting the business, you worked in a time there was no EPA, there was no OSHA, there were no blasting standards. None of these regulations existed. And granted, there were some that needed to be in place, but now you look at what we deal with today. And what your boys are and your grandsons having to deal with on the regulatory side of it. Have we gone too far?
Oh, yes, no doubt about it. We've the federal regulators think they aren't doing their job unless they update and change stuff. And a lot of times they don't need to update. They don't need to change. They just need to calm down, pick out what's practical, and enforce it.
Yeah.
But without them being involved in writing new standards and updating, they'd be out of a job. They don't want to be without a job, but they should be.
I don't disagree with you there. You know, and I think that we hear that often, that has become one of the, if not the, most challenging issues that contractors are facing right now, the regulatory environment that we're having to deal with. Can you imagine Jay and Alton having to deal with EPA and OSHA?
No, and certainly not my dad. About the time my dad retired, he went to the shop and wrote up on the bulletin board at our shop, "Dump your used oil in the woods."
Is that what it said?
That's what it said.
Please tell me you still have that sign.
That sign is still up there.
That is,
don't bring it here.
They would put you under the jail today for that. Wow, but that was just common practice back then. Throw your tires out in the woods, dump your oil.
Yeah.
How about that? Why?
We didn't even have plastic pipe whenever I started laying pipe. And now plastic is probably the dominant pipe on almost everything.
You know, you've seen it. We talked a lot. You've seen a lot of change. You don't work 60 years and not experiencing a lot of ups and downs and challenges and change. What do you feel like was better back then? And then what pieces of it do you say we're better off now for having this? Let's start with, if you could bring pieces of it back, what would you bring back?
Nothing.
You wouldn't change a thing.
I think that all the changes that have been made, all the advances, are basically for the good. Some things have gone much too far, but I certainly would not want to go back to what we fought in the 50s and 60s.
So you love the changes in the technology and the people development and all the other aspects of what we're seeing in construction companies today. You love seeing those changes come.
For the most part,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. It's evolved a lot.
It really has, yeah.
What pieces outside of the regulatory environment do you say, man, I don't know. I don't know if that's going.
Well, the equipment. There's so much difference in the equipment that we're using. Like I mentioned earlier, I was in the business when we had cable backhoes, cable excavators. I remember the very first hydraulic excavator we bought. And the equipment is so much easier to operate, so much easier to maintain, so much more economical. I remember the old 600 compressors where we'd drilling and blasting, and they'd burn 100 gallons of diesel a day.
Oh, my goodness.
Most of it ran out the exhaust pipe down the side of the engine. But everything's just so much more efficient. It just works so much better, so much easier. Yeah. I wouldn't go back for anything.
What about people? How have they changed over the years as far as...
They've gotten lazy. I remember the time whenever you worked a full 50-hour week, and if you could get any overtime, they were anxious for overtime. They wanted to work Saturday if there was anything to do, servicing equipment or cleaning up the yard or whatever. And now people are so affluent, I guess, that they just don't feel like they need to work. They value their time off much more than they do some extra overtime.
Yeah.
And I won't say that's bad. I mean, I'm glad that they have time to spend with their families and pursue the things that they enjoy doing. But that has been a tremendous change in employees.
It's a shift, especially for our industry.
Yeah.
Yes. And I agree. I mean, without throwing shade at any age, I think that has changed over the years, where it was all work, and now it's a balance.
It is a much better balance. Let's say it's a better balance.
It is. Yep. They try to spend a little time at the house with the family.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad we can give them that time.
Yes. Yeah.
Brad, do you have thinking back over your career, do you have projects that you look back on and say that was pretty cool?
Everybody's got the job from hell. That's the one.
Which one was that for you? Which one was that?
That was the sewer line in Fayetteville, where we were forced to use some subcontractors that weren't capable. The one that actually forced to change from RAND to B.R.S.
That's the one you still remember.
Yeah, that's what I call it, the job from hell.
The butt kicker.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, that sounds like one of those, no matter how well you performed, the deck was stacked against you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's challenge. That's a challenge. So that was one you just needed to get out of that one. That was one that haunts you to this day. What about the job that you're most proud of?
Oh, golly. The Franklin Water Plant in Charlotte, probably.
I saw that one on the website. That's impressive.
Yeah, we That was, at that time, that was the largest, deepest work we had done. And we had not been laying pre-stressed concrete pipe because the pipe suppliers pick their favorites and give them the best price. That's about gone too. That's not happening like it did. But we weren't able to get a decent price on the pre-stressed concrete pipe. And I complained to one of the salesmen about it. So whenever that job came, we got a decent price. I think he was just trying to break us. I don't know. But we got a decent price on the materials, and we drove our own sheeting 55 feet deep. We laid 120-inch concrete pipe.
120 inch.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I had rented a crane to lay that for a year because it just took a big piece of equipment. Each joint of the pipe weighed 63,000 pounds. And it was at a 16-foot length because they couldn't haul a full 20 like they were used to making on the highways. So they made it in short pieces and still weighed 63,000 pounds.
Wow.
So that job, I guess, gave me confidence that, well, like I've said since then, if somebody can do it, why not us?
So at that time, when you were awarded that project, you had not done anything of that
We'd
scale.
not done anything of that size.
So when you're looking at that job and you're seeing what all's required, you look at it, you said, we can do this.
Yeah.
And then you just build a plan.
If somebody can, why not us?
I love it.
Exactly right.
I mean, you had 80-foot, you had 84-inch pipe that was 30 foot deep.
Yeah, we
On
did.
that project.
Mm-hmm.
And that picture on that on your website, on the history part there, that's your dozer from back then you was talking about. With the young feller on the dozer on the website, you know which one I'm talking about?
You got me now, BamBam. Oh, that on the D4?
Yeah.
That was me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was me. That was the job at Wilson, snaking logs to the fire, pulling them with that D4.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I had a cousin that ran a HD5, same size piece of equipment. And he and I both snaked logs to the fire to burn them.
There you go.
And that's where we used the ditching dynamite. We'd put ditching dynamite in to drain the swamp so that we could get on it with the equipment. And whenever I was 15 years old, one of the neighbors came to get me to load and shoot ditching dynamite to drain a pond for him. I was too young to drive, and I was the blasting expert on that project.
15 years old.
15 years old.
15 years old and blowing stuff up. Now, that's cool.
Well, hey, you've been napping on it for years at that point.
My first car was a 1930 Model A Ford that my dad bought for me when I was 15. And I built a hot rod, put a V8 engine in it and hydraulic brakes. And a friend and I would get a little dynamite out of the magazine every now and then and fuse caps. And we'd ride down the road and throw dynamite out the window to make a lot of noise.
Well, see, you can't do stuff like that now, but
You can't.
but it sounds cool.
It does sound cool. It does sound cool. Yeah, it sounds like you, your dad, and your uncles, y'all were really good about knowing what you wanted to be and what you didn't want to be.
I think you're right about that. Yeah. There were some things we didn't want to be in. Big interstate highway contractor was one of the things that they didn't want to be.
Yeah. And you were intentional about it, and you saw those things, and even though they came up, you were good about determining, is this help us hit our goal, or is that a distraction? Do the boys have different views of this?
No, I think they're still holding on to basically those same views. For instance, whenever HDD became an item, that's directional drilling, where you can steer your bore that the gas people and the telephone people use so much. And we got together as a company, the management group, and decided we did not want to get involved in the directional drilling. And the boys have stayed with that. They still don't want to get involved in the directional drilling.
I don't blame 'em.
Now we do have a guided bore system that we use as a guide for our auger systems, but we've only had it a couple of years, and it will get us a guide hole across the highway. We used it up on Interstate 85 to bore a 48-inch water line across 85, 300 and some feet just a while back.
Wow. You know, you talked about Generation 5 is here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who knows how many generations of Barringers are gonna come after you and be a part of this thing.
Well, now understand that this is not going to continue.
What's not going to continue? The Barringers?
No, the Barringers are going to continue, but we won't be laying sewer lines.
What? Okay. What's it look like?
At some point in the future, a person gets up off the toilet and hits the button, and it goes. And about once a week, you take a little bag and throw it in the trash, and we won't waste all of this treated water and tremendous pipelines transporting waste to a sewage plant that really doesn't work anyway. Technology is going to do away with what I've made a living at.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yep.
But, you know, I can't today, and I believe it. I believe it. We need to get into, what'd you call that machine that says, psh? We started producing those.
Yeah, my boys have been wanting me to invent it.
You need to invent it.
Yeah.
Well, Bam Bam and I will go in with you on that one.
All we need,
that's the future.
We just need cheap energy, and it could be made to happen.
But you're right. Yeah, infrastructure, as we're used to seeing it, will look much different in the future.
I think so.
Yep.
I don't think we'll have all these transmission lines running power all over the place that are the grid that's so susceptible to damage and storms. I think there'll be energy again if we get a place where we can generate the electricity we need at the site. Then we'll do away with the grid. I think that's a given. It's going to go away, I think.
That's probably closer than it is further away.
I think you're right. I think that's right.
Well, let me change my question then. So no matter what it looks like, let's say Generation 6 Barringers, they're making these machines that go psh, and they're not laying 120-inch pipe anymore. What is the thing that you hope they never lose? What is that Barringer piece that you hope, no matter what the company is, who's running it, you hope they hang on to?
I hope that they always have fair dealings with all of their projects that they work on, all of their owners, and fair dealings with the employees. I've said time and again that nobody works for B.R.S. We got a lot of folks that work at B.R.S. that work with us, but nobody works for B.R.S. They're working for themselves. They just happen to be doing it at B.R.S.
I like that.
I do too. I like
that.
Yeah.
And that says the integrity piece is the piece that's most important to you. And that's why you've done it for 60 years.
Well, I've tried.
All right, so are you up for a little game? Bam Bam's he's good at games.
I'm not good at games, but I'm up.
You're gonna be good at this one. You're gonna be good at this one. All right,
all right.
Tee it up, Bam Bam.
All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna come up with the most funny or interesting thing that you've ever seen on a job site. We're gonna give you a minute to think about it. And we need for you to describe it in 6 words or less.
6 words or less.
That's hard, ain't it? Can you do that?
I don't know. Let me make sure I understand. So you're some kind of crazy story that construction-related story that, and you have to say what it is in 6 words.
6 words or less. You can go less, but you can't go more. So
I bet you have seen some crazy stories over the years.
I think probably a couple of misfires with dynamite. Now, how did I get that in 6 words? Orange smoke.
It went off too soon.
A blast hole.
There you go. Orange smoke coming from a blast.
Oh my God!
You going next?
That was pretty good. You were pretty quick on that one. Let me make sure I got my mark.
Hip on that one, didn't
He did.
he? Yeah.
He did.
Quick.
It blew up too quick.
I've had a little bit of time to think about mine. It took me a day.
All right.
Here we go. You can smell that sawdust burning over here now.
7. All right, that's good.
We're going to have to cook one.
D doesn't really count, so we're gonna go. We won't use D. It won't count. It's 7.
Okay.
She threw his clothes on the job.
Okay. That's gonna be a good one. Yours is gonna be a good one.
All right, he threw his clothes on the job. We went to work in High Point one day, and the kids had thrown rocks in one of the manholes and had the sewer all clogged up. The manhole was flooded and running out over the top. And I had an employee that said, "I'll fix it." So he jumped in the manhole full of sewer, pulled some rocks out so that it would drain, got out, pulled his clothes off, threw them away. We took him to a service station and washed him down in the wash pit and bought him some new clothes. Now, that's more than 6 or 7 words.
I will tell you, don't look.
You can't.
Game over. Game over.
Yeah, you can't do that.
That wins. That wins. Yeah, I was in college at the time. I'd spend summers out on the road crew. My dad worked for a paving contractor, and I never will forget. We saw this car pull off the interstate. We worked 421 out in Siler City. Car pulled off the interstate, and you just see clothes start coming out of the window.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, they just dumping trash. Well, but the guy that was on the motor grader parks the motor grader. I'm pulling streamline. And he starts running over there. Come to find out, that was all his clothes. She had dumped all his clothes. She had kicked him out and dumped all his clothes out on the job site.
Well, he knew what he's supposed to have done.
He had no, he had bad, but it was that was pretty funny. I remember that one.
Y'all ready for mine?
Yeah.
Y'all ready?
What you got?
Yeah.
30,000 stolen. We got them.
30,000 of what? 30,000 what?
You know a little bit about this.
Oh, the one that, yeah. This just happened.
Yeah, right before Christmas.
I know exactly the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, clue me in.
You ready?
I'm like,
All right, I'm gonna briefing this up. That's a word, eh?
Briefing? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We understand it.
Briefing.
So we had a couple of individuals that was stealing the framing grates for catch basins off our job site. They had us Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night. We started getting police reports done every morning. Finally, we decided we had done had a belly full, and we was gonna try to do something to catch them. We done put a camera system up and got a picture of the suspect in vehicles, and we was up there putting up some more stuff to try to catch them. And they pulled in there in the middle of us putting that stuff up, so we chased them and got the police involved. Of course, the police ended up chasing them. They wrecked the police car in the middle of it. We was right behind them when they they ended up catching them.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
We've had similar stories, but we had an air compressor stolen, and one of our employees spotted it at a garage just down the road, and we recovered it. Had liner plates stolen off jobs, and one of the employees saw that a pickup had a load of liner plates heading to the scrapyard. Turned out it was our liner plates.
Yeah. That guy didn't know that one of the guys that was there actually drives dirt track race cars.
How stupid can you show up to the same job site 5 days in a row?
Yeah.
Just
Well, NASA can't get everybody.
You know what? I think Brad won that thing. Climbing down the sewer and taking a shower at the gas station.
Yeah.
I think you win. And I got a feeling you could probably trump our stories all day long. We could stay at this, and you would have a one-up story on us every time.
I also had an employee we had a 48-inch sewer plugged with a 24-inch plug into 48-inch plug. And we were pumping the sewer around. And my superintendent was going to, we were finished pumping, he was going to pull the plug. So he went down in the hole, about 20-some feet deep. He went down in the hole, pulled the 24-inch plug out, and he didn't realize how much pressure was going to be behind it, and it washed him down the sewer line for about 100 feet until he managed to get a hold of something and get stopped.
Wow.
Boy, that was a close one.
That was a close one.
Yeah. I had, I got one that happened at my previous job. A boy bought a scratch-off ticket on his way in and scratched off and won. And it was a pretty good bid. I can't remember the amount, but it was up in the thousands. And his wife brought him a bucket of chicken and took his lottery ticket.
She traded the lottery ticket for a bucket
of chicken for a lottery ticket.
He might have gotten a good deal. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say he just quit right there on the spot. I got my $1,000, I'm out.
I don't think he got that much, but that was not a $1,000 bucket of chicken. I've seen.
Oh, my goodness.
I bought each one of my employees a ticket on a Caterpillar backhoe loader, and one of my employees happened to win. I said, now, if you win, you don't have a use for it. I'll give you $35,000 for the machine and pay the tax. So when he won, he sold me the machine. I gave him the money. He left his wife and kids and went to Tennessee.
Oh, my gosh. Mercy. He got his $35,000 and said, I'm out.
I'm out. He came back a year or two later completely broke, but he had a ball for about a year.
He hit the lottery.
When you told him what you was going to do if he won, the wheels started spinning on his plan.
That is funny. That is funny. Well, Brad, thank you so much. I could sit here and do this with you all day. Can you imagine sitting down with Brad around the bonfire?
It was great.
And just listening to stories?
Yes, sir. I appreciate your contribution of construction and to the safety industry through some of the stuff you've worked on. And hey, 2 million.
2 million man hours without a lost time accident.
Yeah.
We were actually runner-up, second place to a National AGC Safety Award in Palm Springs, California, several years ago. That was a proud moment, too, when we were second in the nation.
Huge accomplishment. Congratulations.
Yes.
That's something to be very proud of. So, final words. I want you to think about that 20-year-old that just got told that they are now vice president of the company, and they've never led people. They've never been in that kind of position. What advice do you have for a young leader that's just starting out in their career in construction?
Okay. The same advice that I have given the 8th grade class from Stanfield School that came to our office for several years and looked at some of the bridges I had built in our park. And they asked if it was expensive, did it take a lot of money, or was it hard to get into construction? I said, no, it's not. Find out what you like to do. If you like to do something, then you're going to probably be good at it. You can rent a piece of equipment, and if you can make a profit, you can eventually buy a piece of equipment or several pieces of equipment. But most of all, you're going to need a good relationship with a bank, with 2 banks actually, because banks are fickle. You don't ever know if those banks will stay with you or not. You need an insurance agent that will sell you what you need and no more. You need an accountant that will keep you out of tax trouble. You need a lawyer that will give you good legal advice. And I said, if you establish good relationships with those people, all you've got to do is just hang on, because they're going to drag you through life as fast as you want to go. And one of the teachers said, Brad, I never realized that you needed those relationships. I said, well, you do. And all of those people make their living on you. They're not going to give you bad advice. They want you to make money so they can be paid.
She
said, gosh, I never thought of that.
That is gold right there. I love that. There's your secret to success. Figure out what it is you like, and then find your bankers, find your accountants, find your lawyers, and find your insurance agent. And then they're going to push you harder and faster than you could.
You're right where you need to go.
And one last piece of particularly good advice. Always hire people that are smarter than you are.
Yes. Well, that's why we got BamBam. That's why you're here.
If my wife is listening, you heard that.
Brad, thank you so much. This is great. I love that. That's a great way to close it out. Thanks for coming in and sharing.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
This was fun.
Enjoyed looking back and remembering some things that I'd probably put way back in my memory bank and forgotten about.
You know what? All of us can be so lucky is to be able to have 60 years of strong career like you've had, and to just be able to share those stories with the next generation. And but it looks like you're enjoying retirement, you're enjoying life, and congratulations on all your success. You got a lot to be proud of, and I know you are.
I am. I really am. But thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bray.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Give Us the Dirt. Our podcast is powered by Hoopah Grading Company in Charlotte, North Carolina, and produced by Well Run Media and Marketing. Visit our website at giveusthedirtpodcast.com and subscribe to this podcast on Apple and Google so you never miss an episode.